Herb Stevens, the skiing weatherman here for SnoCountry with an outlook for the next 2 to 3 weeks in terms of the weather for skiers and riders in the eastern U.S., let's say from the Great Lakes to the mountains of Maine and southward to the southern Appalachians, where the season's still going on. I think the southern Appalachians are pretty much out of luck in terms of any additional natural snow at this point, but those machine-made bases are fighting a good fight against the increasing sun angle and the lengths of the day, but there's some sliding to be had all the way down to North Carolina over the next week or so. This report is brought to you by UVEX Sports, and the headlines read this way. The pattern is not going to change for a while yet. I think we've got a couple weeks, maybe 3 more weeks to go with a dominant trough in the eastern part of the United States, and while that doesn't guarantee you're going to get a late week snow, it does fight off the seasonal changes and slow them down, but they cannot be stopped at this point. The sun angles are getting higher. We have more of a tendency toward loose granular snow and frozen granular when you have the chilly nights, but all in all, the base snow should hold up well from the central Appalachians northward right through Easter weekend and beyond. The Big Blue H is in control over the eastern part of the country. You don't see any watches or warnings or advisories in effect, and there's the Big Blue H right there over Toronto, and this high-pressure system was responsible for the very cold air that covered the Great Lakes yesterday and much of the east, and it's another chilly day, but the air mass is modifying just by virtue of being exposed to the incoming radiation from the sun for so many hours. Notice this low-pressure system out here in the plains. There's another one in the northern plains. And these have evil intent if you're looking for dry snow surfaces as we work our way through this week. The jet stream shows something that's very important for this time of year. If you've been watching these reports, you know that much of the winter we've had a broad ridge in the west and a broad trough covering the eastern U.S. and eastern Canada. But we now have a shortwave trough in the northeast, a ridge through the western and central Great Lakes, a shortwave trough there coming out onto the plains, another shortwave trough in the northern Rockies, and what this illustrates is that the wavelengths between these features start to shorten up when we get into the spring, and the main reason is that the cold pools that drive these troughs start to shrink because there's just not as much cold air available. So we look for a more active pattern as we get into the springtime with the shortening of the wavelengths, and that infers also that you will have quicker changes. And we've got one of those changes coming up this week. Today's 5,000-foot temperatures, and also if you've been watching through the winter, you know that if you're looking for the rain versus snow line, it's a good idea to identify where the 0 Celsius line is at 5,000 feet because that correlates well with where the rain snow line is for the most part. Right now it cuts from Chicago down through the Ohio Valley and then off the coast of the Mid-Atlantic. There are the 2 surface lows. Keep an eye on those because one that's down to the south is going into the eastern lakes, and the northern one's going to be here over the Arrowhead of Minnesota by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon. And the circulation around the first low, the southwesterly flow, is going to push the colder air northeastward through New York and through New England as we go through Wednesday. It's also going to lead to some warm advection showers. This first system is going to pull up into Ontario. Meanwhile, the second one is going to sort of dumbbell around the first one and take a track up through New England during the day and nighttime hours on Thursday. We go to Thursday afternoon and notice the milder air is all the way up into Maine, but already the colder air behind the second system is starting to make progress through the Great Lakes and into the northeastern part of the United States. At the surface, the second low, because it takes a more southerly track, well, it's probably going to be able to tap into some Gulf moisture. And on Thursday afternoon, it looks as though it will be raining across upstate New York and across New England, all the way into southern Quebec. But we have a situation here that may be able to rescue the surface conditions. It's called an anafront, and that is a situation where if you draw the cold front right about there, notice that more moisture is depicted on the backside of the front than out in advance of the front. And when you have more moisture behind this front, you have a chance for the cold air to catch up to the moisture and turn it into snow. And I think that's going to happen Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening across upstate New York. And then as the low pulls up into the St. Lawrence River Valley Thursday night and Friday, this anafront precipitation will change to snow from the Adirondacks to the central and northern Green Mountains in Vermont, and probably to the higher elevations such as Cannon and Bretton Woods and Wildcat in New Hampshire, and eventually over to Sunday River, Saddleback, and Sugarloaf in Maine. If we look at the Friday morning surface map, you can see the low is already off the map up here, headed toward the Gas Bay, but we've got some back-end snow falling across New York State and northern New England into Quebec. And this doesn't look like a big snowmaker, but I think what we can do is get several inches of snow to come on top of the surfaces that are going to be moistened. And we may lose a few natural snow trails with the rain that's coming Thursday, but I think the best we can hope for with this snow is a little bit of dust on crust coming up Friday into Saturday. There's the next high-pressure center. It's going to deliver the cold air Friday morning. Notice that zero line cuts across the mountains of northern New England down to the central Appalachians. There'll be some rain changing to snow down around Snowshoe. They still have most of their terrain open, and they plan to stay in operation until April 5th. They should be able to make it, but the core of the cold air on Saturday is going to be across upstate New York and northern New England, and the sunshine is going to be out there. That's good because it is going to be in the teens in these mountains on Saturday, but the sunshine will help it feel a lot more comfortable than that. 7-day snowfall. The GFS model likes the idea of the backlash snows, the anafront snows across upstate New York and the higher elevations of northern New England. The Canadian forecast is pretty similar. The Canadian actually brings some snow with the anafront down here to the mid-Atlantic as it leads the low on a track that's further south. I'm a little skeptical about this, but I should also point out that early next week a clipper is going to move in this general direction to bring some additional snow to the Adirondacks and northern New England. That'll be probably on Monday the 30th or thereabouts. Now let's go ahead to 7 days from now. A week from today, the Canadian ensembles, after that clipper goes by, they really dig the trough in, so it's going to be colder than normal through much of next week. However, after we see a brief warm-up on Wednesday and Thursday of this week, that's probably going to repeat itself later next week, probably about 8 or 9 days from now. And then the 10-day forecast is for the trough to get regenerated in the east. Notice there's a trough cutting through in the west. And over the next couple of weeks, the axis of this trough is going to shift west, and that's going to allow a ridge to start to build up the eastern seaboard. It won't be fully complete, this pattern change, until we get past 15 days. But right now, if you're looking to Easter for skiing and riding in the Midwest or in the Northeast, the situation looks pretty good. I think the trail counts are going to be excellent for that holiday. And then if we go to 15 days, notice that we still have a tendency for a trough in the east. I like that idea. We're not quite to the 10th of April, but eventually this trough, I think, is going to help set up in the west as this trough migrates in that direction, and that'll allow the ridge to build up the east and start to bring more persistent and consistent mild air to the east after the 10th of April. Not until. Until then, the cold shots are going to call the cold air is going to call the shots past Easter. We will occasionally have 1 to 2 day warm-ups, only to be swept away by a new cold front. In terms of late snow this season, right now I think they're pretty much restricted to areas north of Interstate 80, but the Easter weekend is looking good if that's what you're targeting. So that's it for now. I'm Herb Stevens for SnoCountry.com and also for UVEX Sports. Enjoy your sliding, and if you're headed out on a sunny day this weekend, don't be fooled. The surfaces are going to be firm, and go for those sunny runs. They will be your friend in this Arctic chill that's coming down over the weekend. But enjoy your sliding and be safe.